We've gotten a glance at some of the kits for Splatoon 3 when we got that Turf War gameplay video. However, we don't know for certain if these kits are final. Nintendo has previously used kits in these types of videos that would go on to not be real. Nogami himself has even come out and said that they used fake kits for show in trailers. This means we have no idea if these are even going to be real. So in that vein, I thought it'd be fun to take a look at some kits I made for weapons. Now, I'm only going to go over a few weapons in this video, mainly the Octobrush, Mini Splatling, and the 52 Gal. All weapons that I enjoy and will likely be my mains in Splatoon 3. So let's take a look at some of the kits, why I want them, and let's just get into it. For the first kit of the video, I want to talk about a weapon I hope maintains the kit from the gameplay, the Octobrush. Shown in the video, Octobrush sports the suction bomb with the zipcaster, and I've already talked about it in a previous video, but this kit addresses a lot of the issues brushes in general suffer from, and that's little utility outside of a kit that has a good sub and a mess special, or a mess sub and a good special. You can never go wrong with a lethal bomb like Suction or even Splat Bomb, and the Zipcaster, by the looks of it, will be great at enabling weapons like the Octobrush. There's still a lot of questions surrounding Zipcaster, questions like how would special power up even affect it, or exactly how many swings we'd get out of it. But even with these, I think it's shaping up to be a very interesting special. For me, I'd like that the Octobrush at least keep the Suction Bomb or just get a Splat Bomb instead as a base. Even if the Zipcaster has to go, just as long as it ends up with a sub that is a lethal one, I'll be fine with it. The next idea is actually a new one, curling Bomb and Ink Vac. Despite the roll speed being quite high, Octobrush actually does struggle with mobility. This is simply because actually rolling around is often a death sentence for the Octobrush, even if you stacked main power up. It's just too risky to casually do, especially if you're in higher ranks. The curling bomb will allow for much faster movement and give it mobility that it lacked otherwise. It'll also allow for mix-ups and baiting out enemies who may be thinking you're following the curling bomb. While not as great as having a lethal bomb, the overall utility of the curling bomb gives so much more potential and still does correct a shortcoming of the weapon, something the kits really should do and really haven't been doing. The other aspect, the Ink Vac, is there as a means to assist the Octobrush hold its ground. While Octobrush excels at punishing one or two targets that are out of position, if the Octobrush itself finds itself pushed by multiple people or itself has been pushed too far along, the Ink Vac could provide a bit of a reduction of incoming fire, at least enough for it to be able to move somewhere safe. I will note this is something we still don't know a whole lot about at the time of writing this, but by the way it looks, it working on Octobrush might actually provide a failsafe that it can use to hold back as it retreats. It could also be used to start a push alongside your team, providing some reduction in damage as your team moves forward. This kit I came up with as sort of an aggro kit, something that enables a completely different playstyle from the other kit I mentioned. The previous kit is sort of like an all-rounder, while this one I could see geared more towards an aggressive playstyle with quick engage and disengages with the curling bomb, and last-ditch effort protection with the Ink Vac. Okay, before I start with this next kit, I do want to say first off that this kit will likely never happen, and it'll become clear here why soon. This kit is purely something I'd find funny if it was true, and the concept of it is fun. However, Nintendo would never in a million years allow it to happen. Now, save this for when they prove me wrong. For the sub-weapon, I chose Burst Bomb. This alone is what will make it never happen. There's no way Nintendo would allow for the Octobrush to have Burst Bomb. If it did have it though, the amounts of doors this would open would be insane. While my other two kits were about addressing issues with one or two aspects of the thing, having Burst Bomb would fix a lot more just by itself. Mobility, damage at range, spacing out enemies, chip damage, quick paint, all these things Burst Bomb could allow for. Now, why do I say Nintendo would never allow it? It's because of how much damage output the kit would have in total. If they keep the current damage numbers, a direct Burst Bomb could be followed up by just one swing of the brush to kill. Just one swing. And if it was an indirect bomb, it would bring back Splatoon 1 damage, where it would need only 2 swings. Basically, Burst Bomb has the potential to really break Octobrush damage numbers and can greatly affect its time to kill, to the point where I could see people arguing to have it banned. Back in Splatoon 1, there were actually fake leaks going around, and one of them had an Octobrush with Burst Bomb. And even back then, when the weapon was still seen as bad, people were saying it'd be broken and would need a ban. So I think Nintendo knows it could do a lot of damage and wouldn't allow it to exist. As for the special, I think Big Bubbler would be an interesting special for allowing Octobrush to hold space and take fights against weapons that normally would be a thorn in its side. If Big Bubbler works the way I think it does, it will allow for a technique used in Apex Legends and Overwatch that is sometimes called bubble dancing, where you move in and out of the bubble to avoid damage and attempt to outplay the opponent. It's pretty tricky to explain without knowing about it, but you'd move in and out while trying to attack the enemy, who is also trying to move in and out of the bubble, so they can deal damage. It can give outplay potential to something, and I'd really like to see that happen. Getting the big bubbler is more likely thing of the two. I'm fairly confident that Burst Bomb would never find its way onto the Octobrush. We're now done talking about the Octobrush, and onto a game that I got real into at the tail end of Splatoon 1, the Mini Splatling. While it has suffered a fall from grace between games, the Mini has always been a weapon I enjoy playing, and the vanilla kit in Splatoon 2 is about as close to my ideal Mini kit that it has ever had. Back in Splatoon 1, I actually played the refurbished Mini, the one that had Burst Bomb and Burst Bomb Rush. While it was inferior to playing the Zinc Mini, I enjoyed the utility of the Burst Bomb on a weapon that was actually super mobile. I only really ever played it on Splat Zone's Camp Triggerfish when it came up in scrims or tournaments, but I did enjoy it. The vanilla Mini in Splatoon 2 having Burst Bomb felt like it was made for me, and I would actively play it during the first few months of Splatoon 2. So I feel like having Burst Bomb a third time would be pretty ideal for me. As I mentioned, I enjoy the idea of a utility sub that allows for so much on something that's super mobile like the Mini. However, I use it for the most part as final chip damage for enemies who barely survive and make it outside my range. I'd use bomb range up in the first game to be able to throw bombs outside my range and get the final pick off on those who just barely got away. Burst bombs allow for quick cleanup and paint that help get the Mini more ground to move on. Basically, I think the Burst Bomb is a perfect sub for the way that I like to play the Mini, and I would like to see it come back a third time. For the special, I chose the Triple Ink Strike, so the Mini could have a special that could help enforce a part of the weapon's identity: lots of paint. The Mini has always been seen as a good way to spam specials, back with Zinc Mini in the first game, and even being a really good tennis missile spammer in Splatoon 2. Triple Ink Strike is a special that could really aid in the Mini existing for mass paint output. The main does it well, then giving a special that also lends itself well to that identity. It's a real simple answer compared to the others. This kit is a balance of how I like to play and how the weapon itself likes to play. This next kit, I wanted to continue Splatoon 2's Zinc Mini's attempt to recreate the original. While it hasn't been confirmed to be returning, this kit I've included Toxic Mist. I'd certainly like it for some of the changes to be made to Toxic Mist if it does return. I've talked about it many times before, but if it doesn't change, the fact that Toxic Mist at its core is designed to be an evolution of sorts to Disruptor. The problem I have with Toxic Mist is about how many weapons are actually able to follow up on the effects it has. Mini actually can, and already does if people bother even trying the cancel Mini. Even if it has no changes, Toxic Mist is a somewhat decent sub at restricting movement and disabling enemies, allowing for the Mini to chase them down to influence where they move. It's one of the few weapons that can actually use it effectively, and I mostly chose it for the combo potential for the special I'd like to see on it, the Crab Tank. I think Mini in Splatoon 1 had Disruptor and Bubbler. Here we have Toxic Mist, the evolution of Disruptor, and now we have the Crab Tank. Though it isn't the evolution of the Bubbler, it is similar in concept to being a special that provides a shield and a way to continue holding down your position. The Mini could throw the Toxic Mist, see if it's unable to chase them down themselves, and then could jump in the Crab Tank to chase them away. We still don't know a whole lot about the tank itself, so this idea may not end up working out the way it does in my head, so keep that in mind. In an ideal world, the Toxic Mist and Crab Tank would combo nicely into disabling and punishing players, in a similar fashion to how the original Zinc Mini in Splatoon 1 did. Now on to the 52 gal. This one I've designed to be a mixture of the 52 gals across both games. While the trailer showed the 52 gal once again having Splash Wall, I've opted to not include a Splash Wall in either kit. So, spoiler for the next kit, I guess. Instead, the sub we're opting for is the Curling Bomb. The 52 deco in Splatoon 1 had Seeker, and the deco in Splatoon 2 had Curling Bomb, so I decided to keep the Curling Bomb. While it may not do a whole lot for the weapon itself, it does provide movement and some range painting, even if it's not a whole lot of it. With the special, I went with Killer Whale 5.1, which again is a mixture of Splatoon 1 and 2. The original had Killer Whale, and the deco in 2 had Stingray, so I chose to go with the Killer Whale, to have the sort of feel of the both of them in terms of the special. The new Killer Whale will be a good engagement buddy for the 52, that would help lend some damage while the 52 spends time trying to line up shots. How good it works still depends just on how it plays to begin with, but in my mind it'd be a good tool for assisting with pushes and engagements that may allow for more wiggle room for the shots to land from the weapon itself. Much like the Octobrush with Burst Bomb and Big Bubbler, this kit is very much the same idea. The 52 gal has never had a lethal bomb if you don't count Seeker. Giving it one will provide it with the type of utility it hasn't had. While giving it something like a Splash Wall is actually good for the weapon, it has happened 2 games in a row and has been repeatedly considered problematic for the game. Splat Bomb will let the 52 instead space out enemies that can't fight for a prolonged period of time. The reason why Splash Wall is so good is because it buys the 52 gal time it needs to land those shots. Splat Bomb gives it another way to stall for time while keeping enemies at bay, or starting fights with some chip damage that may allow for less shots needed. It'll also allow it to fight at longer range, something it hasn't had. Big Bubbler, on the other hand, is here to function similar to a Splash Wall, but as a special instead. While it may be deemed still problematic, the fact that it's a special instead of a sub may make it more acceptable and less annoying if a 52 gal wastes their special just to be able to kill you. It'd be like back when people would waste Kraken or Bubbler just to get one kill. Yeah, it worked, but did you really get value from it? Not really. Again, this is assuming Big Bubbler works the way it does in my mind. Even if it doesn't, the Bubbler part itself still acts as a makeshift wall to buy time. I decided to do only weapons I'd play and not go into depth about every weapon. I don't know enough, or I'm not good enough at everything to be able to make good judgment calls on kits. Out of all these, I'd certainly hope the Octobrush kits end up happening, even if it's just the trailer kits staying the same. I'd take that. My main hope is that Splatoon 3 finally leans into kits that address flaws of the weapons and isn't full of kits that make little to no sense. It's rather unfortunate to see good weapons suffer from having bad subs or bad specials, as it can really hold back a weapon. But what kind of kits do you guys want to see? Leave a link in the description to the website I used to create the visuals you saw in the video. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.